Hey guys, it's Derek of Blue Collar Chess, and in today's video we're going to be doing a couple problems from Evaluate Like A Grandmaster by Eugene Perlstein and Nate Solon. So this is that book. Hope you can see it. So what this is it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for me as well. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at this position. We're going to do those moves, but we're gonna do it moving the pieces with our mind, right? And then we're gonna be evaluating the position. Okay, so you could always pause this. I'm pretty much just gonna be working through the puzzle too. I have no special sauce or anything like that. I will read it though. So it goes, in this position, White would like to play knight e4. Centralizing the knight and opening a line to bring out the bishop on c1. But this does give black the option to win the pawn on e5. Therefore, we'd like to evaluate the position after 11, knight e4, d takes e5, 12, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, 13, d takes e5, queen takes e5. As always, it's a good idea to take a shot at the problem on your own before reading our answer. So I'm gonna take a look at it. So they're telling us to evaluate knight e4, d takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, and then d takes e5, and then queen takes e5. So that's not too bad, right? Like pretty much, so that knight's gone. So you have a bishop and so you have a knight on e4 and you have a queen on e5. And yeah, the bishop's gone and the pawns are gone. All right, so what's happening there? I would say, so the queen has potential to be attacked, right? Your black squared bishop will be open and go to h6 perhaps. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying it does have that availability there. You'll need to open up your light squared bishop, but you'll just do that by moving your knight. And you'll be hitting the queen at the same time. So is there any good discoveries there? Yeah, I'm not sure if I see any good discoveries, but might have bishop to g5. Would that be a thing? That might be a thing there in that position. So I would say black's dark squares are probably weak in that position. White's probably better developed. Yeah, there's probably a discovery on the queen. So yeah, I would say white's probably better off there. I don't know by how much, but it's probably a little bit better. So let's take let's take a look now before we look at the answer. So knight e4, d takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, d takes e5, and queen takes e5. All right. So let's see what I was saying. Yeah, so there's probably is a discovery there. Yeah, I don't know how good a discoveries they are, but I would say in this position, I would prefer white over black. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard to find anything too interesting to do, though, is there? Oh, the F5 works. You could, I suppose, right now force a trade of your knight for the bishop on d7. You could probably do that. And then you'd have the two bishops. But you're a pawn down too. It's really tough to evaluate these positions, and this is something that I've been working on to get better, because I often will evaluate a position better for myself and not really have any concrete lines. So this is really good for me. However, it's also really hard and not a lot of fun. So yeah, so I guess my final answer is I think white's better here. However, I'm not sure if my reasoning was right, though. Basically just the dark square. So let's take a look at what they say. Black has won a pawn, but at what cost? With the dark squared bishop gone, Black's king is feeling quite drafty. Black's queen is lined up with the rook on e1. This will cost Black a tempo at some point. The knight on b8 is stuck. Oh, I didn't even think about that. The knight on b8 is kind of stuck, actually. Which in turn traps the rook on a8, and white has the bishop pair. So honestly, I didn't even think about those two things. So that knight is kind of chilling out there. And because it's chilling out there, that rook is kind of inactive. So yeah, that's a very good point. All in all, white is much better. There is no direct tactical win as of yet. White's myriad of advantages simply add up to a lot more than a pawn. This is not too hard to see when the position is on the board, but if your visualization is fuzzy, you might be afraid to give up the pawn. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. So if you compare it, like, now that you know the answer, compare that to that, and if you got there, kudos to you. You're doing better than me for sure. I just kind of thought it might be a little bit better. I was a little hazy on why, and yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do one more of these. Bear with me while I set up the position. Alright, so now the new position on the board. So basically they're saying visualize C4 and then evaluate the position. So after C4, what does white have for moves? So after C4, I mean, honestly, it looks like, so your bishop can't go to D3, right? So it could go to E2, and then you get castle. Or you could play B3. Yeah, I mean, you've got B3 possibly, but you've also got E4. So you've got a few moves. You've got kind of the slower bishop E2. You've got the B3 kind of going after the pawn. That's at the head of the chain though. Then they'd play like B4 maybe. So maybe B3 isn't all that great, or not B4 but B5. So yeah, so then you have E4. Basically going after the going after the pawn, but also possibly doing the old going after the knight, which is pinned to the queen. So I would say if he plays C4, all the breaks are in like white's corner. So it's giving white some play, as opposed to just keeping the tension and like developing here with like bishop b7 or b6, or I mean b6 may not be good in that position, but yeah. So I think if you play c4 here, I would say white is probably doing a little bit better because at that point white has all the pawn breaks and I guess potential pins, I suppose. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So let's take a look at it. And then, so I was saying e4. So can't take with a knight. What happens if you just, I don't know, just develop something like that, right? And then what happens? Would you take? Although this pawn is being attacked, right? Kinda. So yeah, so then you take. Probably let's take back with his pawn, or yeah, if he takes back with a knight, yeah, you just clip it, and then yeah, then you take the pawn. So yeah, so he's got to take with the pawn, no choice. And now what's happening? Oh, is g3 and bishop g2 an idea here? Is that possible? I would say that pawn looks weak to me, but it's not super easy to get to. You have an outpost now on e5, but I'm not sure. Yeah. All right, so let's look at the author's. The author says, number 1, 9. Okay. So the authors say, at first, c4 looks like a good idea. Black extends his long pawn chain and takes away the d3 square from the bishop. However, this is a mistake as it loosens the grip in the center. After e4, white takes advantage of the pin and builds his own center with a big threat of e4, e5. Notice how black's c8 bishop is totally locked in. While white will be able to eventually activate his counterpart via e2, d1, c2. 2, d1, c. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So they're saying something like e4, right? And that there's a threat now of the pawn pushing here. So I'm not sure what the move would be. Yeah. And they're saying, so my move, e takes d5, is kind of bad. And the reason why it's bad is because they're saying, so something like this, you do something like that, and now this bishop is kind of stuck behind, you know, stuck behind this kind of pawn wall here, and doesn't have a lot of prospect. So this bishop. So that's a good point. So my move kind of liberates that bishop. So that was kind of a bad move. Yeah, so that's what the author says, that basically because of, well, let's look at, see what happens when, so say they take, right, e4, they take, and I guess you have this right here, right, and then they'll have something like that, and then you can see, yeah, you can still go after that pawn, so you can just go back, right. And yeah. Oh no, you don't even have to go back. You can just, yeah, you can. No, I mean, I actually like going back because now the bishop is also hitting it too. So yeah, so I misjudged that, which is why I'm doing the evaluation stuff. I really struggle with evaluation. Things I'm working on the most are evaluation and visualization, and I'm doing calculation, but I'm working on those things first because as long as I can see the board a couple moves deep, I can find the. It's not so hard for me to find like the tactics and that type of stuff. It's really being able to evaluate the position that I really struggle with. So, anyways, I hope you guys like these. These are kind of advanced type of puzzles. So it was probably fairly boring to watch, and apologize for that. But that's kind of what training chess kind of looks like. I would be doing these a little bit faster. I wouldn't be explaining everything or trying to explain everything. So yeah, so that's this episode, guys. We'll talk to you later.